I'd like to welcome you to our second of our three-part series. Chris is a national career research and talent acquisition expert. He's got 20 years of HR training and conference speaking experience. He served as a subject expert on recruiting, retaining, and developing talent for Vistage, which is a group of 300 business owners and executives. His third book, which I will be sending out this week to everybody, so you should get it either by the end of the week or early next week, is Winning the War for Talent. And it was released in 2018 and served as a talent model for more than 2,500 organizations across the country. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Chris and let him continue on.
Nathan, thank you very much for having me back today. I'm so excited that not only did people come back, but they told their friends, and we've got a couple of new people here. One small correction, maybe I have it wrong in my bio, but I serve as the subject matter expert for Vistage. They have 30,000 business owners that I serve. So I do this all day long, every day. I spent the last 20 years of my life figuring out why people go to work. And why they leave work. I've worked individually with 3,000 individual mid-career professional job seekers, 40,000 new graduate students as the career services manager at the largest technical college in the state of Wisconsin. Let's just say I have a good feel for why people come into your organization and why they leave. But as importantly, I want you to grab onto an idea today. The reason my work is so different, right? So there are lots of people out there who kind of spew out vague generalities, like use keywords and put it in the right place. That's not me. If you're looking for vague generalities, you come to the wrong place. I'm a process-oriented guy. I'm a former process engineer and operations manager. If it's not logical, if it's not sequential, if I can't measure and audit and adapt it, it doesn't exist in my world. So what you'll see both in this three-part series and also laid out very clearly in the book are the nuts and bolts of how to do everything I'm teaching to you, which is recruit, retain, and develop talent for $0 using the existing resources and people that you have. In addition to that, you need to know that you don't have to believe me at all. I mean, I'm pretty qualified to do it, but what you need to know is that for a year, I spent a year deconstructing, reverse engineering how billion-dollar companies sell us everything. How they sell us Cheetos, how they sell us a chalupa, how they sell us a Lexus, how they sell us the shirt you're wearing or the carpet that you're standing on. And so you don't have to believe my work at all, but you probably do have to pay attention to what Nike does and what Lexus does and what General Electric and General Motors does and use it for your own purposes here. When we left off last week, we left off on this slide. And for those of you who weren't here, I hope that you take the opportunity to take a look at the first hour after we're done today, which is all the foundational work behind this. But the basis for this is it's a mathematical certainty that for the next 8.5 years, there are not enough breathing human beings in America to fill all the jobs. That's not my opinion. It's a mathematical certainty. And for the first time in your business life, in order for your company to win the war for talent, somebody else needs to lose. And so I want this idea, this initial idea that you were taught as an HR person or a business owner or a CEO or a CFO, that recruiting is about putting an ad out there and then just choosing from whoever applies, right? We don't know who's going to apply. We have no idea who saw it, who didn't see it. We have no idea where we put it, where the qualified people are. And then somehow from these random people that reply to our job ad, we're supposed to sort through and find 1, 2, or 3 great candidates to talk with. And the fact is, because it's a random search, 75% of everybody who applies to us has no business applying for the job in the first place because they're not qualified, because they don't have the education experience. So that's what you were taught. What if they were wrong? What if you could really genuinely recruit by building a model, a persona, just like Lexus does to sell cars, just like Taco Bell does to sell burritos? What if you built a model and put the message that you were trying to get to in the place that person was going to be, with the words and phrases that speak to their personality type, as you have already identified the kind of person, what job they're currently in, how long they've been in that job, why they might be looking for a change, and what changes in lifestyle would cause people to make that change. We couldn't have done this 10 years ago. But what's interesting that you should understand today is that when you hire somebody, a recruiter, and pay them 30% of the person's first year wages to do some magic and find that person, all they're doing is what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching your company to be your own recruiter, and everything you need is both in this book, on this presentation, and in LinkedIn and the database search engines that I will make available to you. So again, for those who are on there, we started talking about the fact that when we advertise our main product or service, we don't have one ad for every product and service that we have. We have one ad for each product. Even for every individual product or service, we have a different message for every person we're trying to sell it to. So the same product or service might have 4 different brochures, one for big companies, one for small companies, one for privately owned organizations, and one for government organizations. Well, if that's true for your products and services, as you see on this chart in front of you, the first thing you did to try and sell your product and service was ask these 5 questions. And these are the 5 questions that, as I said last week, these billion-dollar companies have these marketing companies answer for them to build this persona. And you can do the same thing to identify what to say, where to advertise, to get in front of the right people with your employment opportunities. Who are you selling to? What is their situation? What problem does coming to work for you solve for them? In order to anticipate where those people are and where we should deliver the message, what causes that problem to occur for that job seeker in the first place that makes them interested in changing jobs? How does their life get easier or better if they come to work for you? And by the way, we're going to stay completely away from pay and benefits. We talked last week. If you're putting pay and benefits and everything in your job ad, you're making a huge mistake. Listen, the 3,000 job seekers told me it's not that your job doesn't have good pay and benefits, it's that your job looks like every other job. And now, considering that they can scan 150 jobs in half an hour with 3 clicks of a button on Indeed or Monster or whatever, it just looks like every other job. Could be the greatest job in the history of the world. The problem is it looks like vanilla ice cream, just like all the other vanilla ice cream out there. And then lastly, what we're going to talk about today is, what emotion does coming to work for you produce? And we're going to talk about something called emotional anchors, which are how you can have benefits that are non-financial, that can reach directly and immediately into the household, that will not only bring people into your organization, make them interested to want to talk with you, but also solidify them in your organization, because the benefit of working there is seen by the spouse, significant other, or the children. So this slide is where we left off last week. And the last thing I want to say before I move on to the next slide is, one of the questions that came up at the end was, well, Chris, this seems like a great way, and using LinkedIn and a profile to hire managers and supervisors. We need hourly employees. That's the beauty of this being a process. I couldn't care less whether you're hiring, as I said earlier, a ditch digger or a circus clown or an astronaut or a brain surgeon. The process of figuring out what to say, where to deliver the message, and how to identify where we can put it in front of those people is exactly the same. Well, how do I know that? Next time you see a Coca-Cola ad on TV or on the internet, they're selling the same thing. They're selling Diet Coke, or they're selling Coke, or they're selling Coke Zero. But you notice that they have like 4 different commercials for Coke Zero? One of them will talk about like how Coke Zero will bring your Christmas together. Another one will show young people playing volleyball on the beach and then having a Coke Zero afterwards. Again, you don't have to believe my work, but Coca-Cola is probably a good place to start. So let's move on from there. When we're talking about employees, and especially hourly or new employees, what we want to do is we want to build that persona and decide where that person in the persona is, where are they likely going to be. And we're going to do that by identifying them by personality type, by hobbies. So we can use 16personalities.com, like I said last week, free personality site. We can identify the personality type of people in our organization who are already good fits in that position and in your culture. We can ask them to take 16personalities.com to come up with the 2 or 3 personality types of the 16 out there that make them a good fit. And then we can take those 4-letter designations, ENTP, INST, or ISTJ, and it'll all make sense to you when you get the book, by the way. But you can actually Google what are the best hobbies for an INTJ, favorite places to do volunteer work for an ENFP. And we can identify where those people are likely going to be, what the mindset is, and what words speak to them. But I want to talk first about how we put this into play for entry-level employees. And the best way by far is to demonstrate what we did for the National Roofing Contractors Association. If you think you have a hard time recruiting, imagine my job as the subject matter expert for 10,000 roofers across the country. And my job is to make roofing sexy, make it appealing to some 18 to 24-year-old, typically male person who had never graduated high school or has no education after high school. Well, the way we did that, and it's been remarkably successful, is the way we did that is when we built the persona of exactly who we were trying to get to apply for our jobs. And we did that by interviewing the last 5 really successful candidates that were entry-level people, hourly employees that came into that organization. And then once we learned from that, we talked to an additional 8 more, and we found that of the 13 new hires who fit in that category, 18 to 24-year-old males, either not a high school graduate or no education after high school, we found out that the life event that made them go from a irresponsible kid who's working 13 hours a week at Walmart so they can put gas in their crotch rocket and drink beer on the weekends, to a responsible person with a full-time job with good paying benefits, we found that that number one event, 8 out of 13 of them, was the birth of a child. And so once we knew that, once we knew the persona, and once we knew the life event that took this, again, they have no education after high school. So in their mind, they believe the world is telling them that their only options are fast food and retail. It's not true. We have great jobs in manufacturing, in landscaping, in communications, blah, 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 blah. You are all sitting there right now saying, oh my gosh, I would love to get a driven high school graduate, or maybe they didn't even quite graduate, but they've demonstrated already that they're very dedicated, they have good initiative, that they're honest people. We want to tell them that their options are more than just fast food, but we don't know how to do that. When we identified that a new baby was the number one cause for people needing to look for a job in that age bracket, in that life situation, we created relationships with the 2 largest, this happened to be in Saginaw, Michigan, with the 2 largest hospitals. And in the hallway where expectant fathers walk, we have a sign, or we have flyers now that says, keep other people safe and dry while you build a new home for your new child or your new family, no experience preferred. We talked about this last week. I'm a huge fan. I think I'm the guy who came up with it because I don't see it anywhere else, but no experience preferred. If you're looking for entry level or hourly employees, no experience preferred is an enormously successful thing that I've done for manufacturers, automated manufacturer equipment managers, the National Roofing Contractors Association. And that's because as employers, we've spent the last 25 years telling people, if you don't fit all of our requirements, our education experience, don't apply. Listen, don't be mad at them for not applying for your job. We spent 2 decades with our job ads telling them, if you don't fit every single one of these requirements, don't even bother. Don't waste our time and don't waste yours. But no experience preferred actually had two responses to it. One of them we expected, which was people calling up and saying, like, really, I have no manufacturing experience at all. You really want me, like, no experience preferred? Yeah, come on in and talk to us. And the other result that we got that we didn't expect was very experienced manufacturing people calling and saying, hey, why no experience preferred? Why don't you want me? And of course, we said to them, we'd love to talk to you. And so what I'm going to talk about now is how we use advertising to not answer questions. And if you're taking notes, this is a great place to take a note. The basis for all successful recruiting advertising is not answering questions. It's creating questions that the applicant can only answer by contacting you. Let me say it again. You're making a mistake by putting all your pay and benefits and letting somebody compare you with everybody else on LinkedIn or on monster.com or Indeed. Our goal is to put the information in there that drives questions that they can only answer by calling us. And so here's how we do that. If you remember correctly, last week, I asked each of you at the very beginning to identify 2 commonly held but false preconceived notions about your industry or your company. Like every company thinks they're awesome and every industry thinks they're amazing. But generally, if you went and talked to a couple of your new employees and even your old ones, and this is a great way to start, just go ask them. Again, you don't have to do this in theory at all. You have all the information that you need with the employees that you've hired over the last 5 years. And go ask them, what is it that you thought you knew about us that kept you from applying to us? What were the false preconceived notions about our industry or about our company that made you not want to apply for us 3 years ago or 5 years ago that ended up not being true at all? Let me give you an example. So all manufacturing is dark, dirty, and dangerous, right? That is the commonly held but false preconceived notion that people have about manufacturing. Where did it come from? Well, it came from their fathers telling their children or their mothers telling their children who were working in paper mills or manufacturing sites 40 years ago, they were dark, dirty, and dangerous. Come on, let's just call it for what it is. I spent 13 years of my life in paper mills. There was a time when manufacturing was not what it is today. And so where do you think these kids that you're trying to recruit, where do you think they got the idea that manufacturing is dark, dirty, and dangerous? They got it from TV shows, they got it from movies, and they got it from their parents and their parents' friends. But we know that's not true at all. We know that manufacturing is safe and it's incredibly clean and it's automated, and we want people who can think on the move, and it's not just a strong back and a weak mind at all. So let me give you an example of this. In Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, I have a manufacturer that has a computerized metalworking, right? So they have mills and they have laser cutting for sheet metal and all those things. And they were having a terrible time getting young people to come in the door and even see them, because they're like, if we could get them in here, they would realize that their false preconceived notion about manufacturing doesn't apply here, doesn't fit. So we created a billboard, a blip billboard, by the way, and I'll talk about that. A blip billboard, which, by the way, is a billboard that you can rent, an electronic billboard, for $25 a day and zero cost to create the advertising. See what's going on right now? You have false preconceived notions about what it would take to use a billboard, likely, but that is truly a false preconceived notion. So we got a blip billboard, and we had a picture of people sitting on a picnic tablecloth eating on the production floor, and the ad said, "So clean, we actually do eat off the floor." Now, you'll notice that advertising didn't say anything about pay, didn't say anything about benefits, didn't say anything about progression or development. But what it got people to do is to ask questions. Good advertising makes people ask questions. Is that true? Does that really play out in the real world? Well, let's see. Nike has the most popular tagline in history: just do it. And it drives us to ask this question to Nike: just do what? And Nike says, well, we'd be happy to show you, but you're going to have to come look at our products and services online or come into our stores. McDonald's says, I'm loving it. And we ask, well, I'm loving what? What are you loving in there? They haven't talked about their products. They haven't talked about their food. They haven't talked about their pricing. They haven't talked about their service. What they've done is built a question in your mind that you can only answer by interacting with McDonald's in some way. Walmart Save money, live better. You got to be kidding me. Our false preconceived notion is that you always have to spend more to live better. How can anybody live better by spending less? And Walmart says, we'd be happy to show you, but you're going to have to contact us online or in person to see. So if you're like most advertisers out there, you're trying to win the war for talent with money and benefits. And I'm telling you, you can't win it that way. It's a never-ending upward spiral of this competitor raising their wages $1 an hour, and this one responding by raising it $1 an hour, and then this one saying that you can start your benefits on day one of your employment. Like this is a never-ending upward spiral that you can't win. More importantly, who are you, if you're doing it that way, who are you appealing to as an employee or as an applicant? If people will come for money, guess what? They will also leave for money. And so most people use pay and benefits because it's the only tool that you've been taught to use. But as you start to look around yourself today, the internet ads and the television ads that are out there, you can take a look at those things that are coming at you all day long, every day. And yes, by the way, our recording will be available, I believe. Nathan, thank you. And so you don't have to, again, you don't have to believe me at all. I'm pretty good at this. But the way somebody's selling you M&Ms, right? The M&Ms, the classic Christmas M&Ms commercial has the two M&Ms walking in on Santa Claus. And Santa Claus faints, and so do the M&Ms. One of the M&Ms. What did that tell us about the taste of M&Ms or the price of M&Ms or the packaging of M&Ms? Absolutely nothing. It got us to ask a question. What do M&Ms have to do with Christmas? And the only way you can answer that question is go to the store and look for Christmas M&Ms. So what I want you to think about today is I want you to go right now, if you would please, and if you jump in on the chat, in the chat box, I'd love it. But think about your company and your industry. And what I'd like you to do is share one commonly held but false preconceived notion about your industry or your company. Just take a moment here, take 30 seconds and just write down, if you would, one commonly held but false preconceived notion about your industry or company that likely would keep people away from applying to your job. I'll give you about 30 seconds here, and then I'm going to ask at least one, and hopefully two people to chime in. You don't have to have the answer. You just have to be able to describe the problem. Nathan, I feel like I should be humming the tune from Jeopardy.
Gotta fill that silence.
All right, well, because you live in your industry and in your company, and you may have had these preconceived notions before you went to it as well, I'd like one or two people to chime in on the chat box and tell us what industry you're in and what is the false but commonly held preconceived notion that might keep people away from considering you as an employer. Oh, thank you so much. There's somebody in the chat box. Trucking is low paying. Listen, as the career services manager at the largest technical college in the state of Wisconsin, I was in charge of the placement for all the trucking people, some 2,500 a year. Truck being low paying? Oh my, you're right. That is a commonly held but completely false idea. And we're going to talk today about very specifically, how do we hire truck drivers? And what's the life event that makes people become truck drivers? Also, only white men like to join our organization. The Rotary Club. Oh my God, I've been a member of Rotary since 2001. And you're exactly right. And there was a time that was true. Right? There was a time that for the most part, not because the Rotarians wanted it that way, it kind of grew up that way. And so what we have to do is create advertising now. So thank you both for chiming in. Here's the printing industry. It's a small company in a small city that does not embrace large concepts or technology. Oh my God, I am with my people here. I mean, I'm just telling you, like I spent 3.5 years as the sales manager for a $3.5 million printing and packaging company, paperboard packaging company in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I got to tell you, people didn't have a clue what paperboard packaging is or even what we did. So you're right. The false preconceived notion is if you're a small company, you don't have technology. If you're a small company, there's nowhere place to grow. If you're a small company, you don't pay anything. Well, the next thing that we do is I want to teach you how to create advertising. When I say advertising, I mean a tagline, just like Nike uses, just like McDonald's uses, to put at the top of every one of your job ads. Listen, people aren't applying either because they don't want to or they have some preconceived notions. We don't have any control about if they don't want to. But we know, we absolutely know if we go talk to our current and latest hired employees, we know that they had to overcome some false preconceived notions in order to consider us as an employer. First I'll go talk to them and find out in reality what those were. But the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a tagline, just like billion-dollar companies do, that is designed to drive questions that I'm going to encourage you to lead with in every job ad that you have and stay away from anything having to do with pay or benefits. Sorry, a little clicker problem there. Okay, so think of the taglines that I used as example. Just do it. Doesn't say anything about Nike's products and services or their cost or how they compete with a competitor. It gets them to drive a question. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to decide, A, what's the preconceived notion that we want to blow up, that we want to, a tagline is designed to get people's attention. A tagline is designed not to sell them the job or your company or anything. You have got to become seen. Again, my job seekers can look through 150 job ads in 30 minutes. And if there's nothing that's unusual, they'll just pass it over, just like the vanilla ice cream in the ice cream aisle at your favorite grocery store. So what are the parts of a tagline that are important? Number one, they're really short. They have 3 to 5 words. Number two, they contain an oxymoron. Now, an oxymoron is defined as 2 words or concepts that don't seem to belong together. Jumbo shrimp, right? I'm an ex-military officer, so I think that gives me the right to say military intelligence sometimes wasn't clear. Hurry up and wait was one of the things in the military. But you're going to use an oxymoron to get people to read it, and the only goal of the tagline is to get people to stop in their tracks and say, what do they mean by that? That's it. Because just do it stops us in our tracks and we go, well, just do what? Now Nike has our attention enough that they can start talking about their products and services. So the only goal of a tagline is to generate questions. And you can anticipate, and as a matter of fact, you can use and build what question you're looking for them to ask, because the goal of generating this question is that the only way potential job applicants can answer this question is by calling you or contact you in some way at some time. I'm not going to try and teach you how to have a better hiring process or interview process. That's not today. I'm pretty sure you're good at it. And I'm pretty sure once you get the right candidate in front of you, you probably have a 75 or 80% take rate, approval rate of that person coming to work for you. What you need is more of the right kinds of people with the right education, experience, mindset, life situation to walk in your front door and say, hey, I want to learn more about your company. So I'll give you a really good example. For the National Roofing Contractors Association, you probably have some preconceived notions about going to work as an entry-level technician for roofing. It's incredibly, like, you can only do it for a couple of years, right? Because it's very hard on your body. You're climbing up rickety ladders with 50-pound bundles of shingles on your shoulder. You're ever close to being falling because they're all on slanted roofs. And there's just no upward mobility there. Well, what if I told you as the emissary for the National Roofing Contractors Association that more than 60% of all the roofing in America is done on flat roofs. That roofing has the second best safety record in all the construction trades. That the average entry-level roofing technician in their second year will make $60,000 and full benefits. That they will have a 26-year career in that organization, and they will fill 3 separate roles, upward mobility roles inside that organization during that 26 years. Are some of those things different than you might have thought about for roofing? And so here's the tagline that sits again on a blip billboard, BLIP, by the way, blip billboard. You can literally create your own ad, and for $25 a day or more or less, you can choose which electronic billboards anywhere in America your ad appears on. It completely changed the idea of billboards. But here's the tagline that sits outside of Philadelphia. You don't want to do roofing on slanted roofs. Good, we don't either. So what's the question that drives people to call us and ask? Well, if you don't do it on slanted roofs, what do you do it on? Well, we'd love to tell you, but why don't you come on in, or why don't you give us a call and we'll talk about it. Now I've got their attention. Now I know that somebody who's interested in roofing, if we could take away all the false preconceived notions, the things that they think are bad about roofing, if we can take those things away, we have somebody who's genuinely interested in it, who thinks it's a great place to be, if only it weren't somebody who beats you up, if physically, if it weren't fear of falling all the time, if it wasn't unsafe, and if you only couldn't do it for 5 years. If those things weren't true, I would love to do roofing, because I love to be outside. I'm outside hunting and fishing when I'm doing my hobbies anyway. I love going to different places and seeing different things all the time, so I don't want to stay at the same place. We can absolutely identify the profile of the kind of person that our job would be a great fit for. But then we have to get their attention. And so in doing that, what I'd love for you to do is make this a team building exercise. What I'd love for you to do is go back and explain this once you get the book. Go back and explain this and take your leadership team together and say, you know what, let's go talk to our people and let's find out what are the commonly held but false preconceived notions about our company, and then have a competition internally with your sales and marketing people and your people on the floor and everybody to say, what's the tagline that we want to be at the head of every one of our job ads that will grab people's attention because it doesn't sound like what they know. Now, I wouldn't say this, if we lived in a world that wasn't quite so ready to get upset, for Rotarians, I would say, and again, I wouldn't do this, but I'm trying to demonstrate the concept here, old white men need not apply. Now, again, completely inappropriate, would never want to do that, but I'm just demonstrating a very clear idea of how you can take that idea and turn it on its head. Last thing I'm going to talk about here is that the goal of a tagline is to generate questions, not answer them. We want to get them in the door or on the phone so you can answer their questions, because once you do that, you're pretty good at selling your company and your opportunity. Any questions on that topic before I move on, please? Anything not make sense here? Awesome. Either I'm a good teacher or you guys are fantastic students. Maybe it's both. So what I want to talk about here is this idea. We know that you have perfectly good employees who love your company. They tell you they love their company. Every summer picnic, they and their spouse or significant other tell you how grateful they are for the job, that they'd never go anywhere else. At the Christmas party, they do the exact same thing. But your really happy employees, for whatever reason, have never brought one person, not one referral into your organization. What I want to do today is I want to explain to you why they're not doing it and how to fix it. Now, in order to do that, for those of you who weren't on the call last week, you'll remember that the two concepts, or the two words that are capitalized in every book that I write, are willing and able, or unwilling and unable. And what that means is when somebody isn't doing something we want them to do, like if we want our current employees to bring people in, recruit people into our organization, because we know that referrals are the cheapest, fastest, surest hires there are. The question has to be is, are they unwilling or unable to do that? Unable would mean that they don't really know that there's a recruiting program, or that they don't think that they have people who fit the thing that you're looking for, or right. It's probably unwilling, because you've had your poster up, $500 for a referral, $250 paid after the first 90 days, the other $250 after the second 90 days, blah, 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 and it's not working. Well, part of it is because we have to create a referral culture inside your organization. So the first concept here is we need to turn your organization into a referral culture, which means, number one, every executive, every leader, every manager should be required to refer one person into your company at any level once a year. And if they don't, they lose money. Like if it affects their bonus, I mean, you don't fire them if they don't, but they're part of their bonus, part of their ability to earn more money will be based on if you don't refer one person to the organization. Whether they get hired or not doesn't make any difference. But as a military officer, I can tell you, leaders lead from the front. You can't say to the people on the floor, why aren't you bringing people into our organization? Because they won't say it, but they're looking right back at you and say, well, I'll do it when you do it. And so the first thing is you need to start talking about referrals at every single meeting, every staff meeting on the floor, every safety meeting that you have, every leadership meeting, every meeting where you're talking about planning. We need to talk about how much we would love to build our own team. And that's the phrase here, build your own team. That's a tagline, right? Build your own team. Well, I don't get to build my own team. I'm not in HR. I don't get to this. Yes, you do. And let me explain to you how. The second thing is when somebody does make a referral, we need to make a really big deal out of it. The first person that makes a referral, whether we hire them or not, because again, we're not going to hire everybody who gets referred. We still have a screening process. We still have an interview process. So we won't hire everybody, but even if we don't hire them, we're going to make a huge deal out of it. And we're going to call people together in that department. And we're going to hand them a $50 gift certificate to a restaurant that they normally would never go to, and they and their spouse would never go to. We're going to hand, even if the referral doesn't work, hand them a gift card to a place that they would likely never go to eat, too fancy, too nice, whatever, and encourage them to spend the evening out on the company as thanks for trying to do the referral. And what will happen at that dinner, the spouse or significant other will say, so how can we afford to eat here? And they say, well, I did a referral and they gave me a $50 gift card. It didn't even work out. You know what? If I do get somebody to join, I get, and I'll explain to you what we get in a second, and that you now get the spouse or significant other significantly involved in referrals. So how does that work? Why aren't people referring people to your organization? It's really simple as I talk to my 3,000 job seekers. Number one, you're trying to overcome an emotional risk with a financial incentive. When you're asking somebody to refer somebody to your organization, they're putting a 3 or 5 or 10-year friendship on the line, even though they have no control over whether that person gets interviewed, no control over whether they get a job or not, no control over who their manager is going to be, no control over how they're going to be treated and what their experience is going to be like. And they're putting this 5 or 10-year relationship at risk, have no control, and what are you offering in return? And I get why you're doing it. It's the way it's been done. But again, what if they were wrong? What if the people who taught you that that's the way to get, what if they were wrong? What we do today is say, listen, we'll get you $250 after 90 days and another $250 after 180 days if they work out, which again, the referral person has no control over. Well, what does that really equate to? After taxes, it's $171 on a paycheck with which they buy 2 cut tires for their car and they move on. So essentially think about what you're asking. You're asking people to put a 5 or 10-year relationship at risk for 2 tires. Would you do it? More importantly, have you done it? How many people have you referred into the organization? It's got to become a cultural thing. So the same way that we're going to, even if it doesn't work out, we're going to give somebody a $50 gift certificate. Here's a model. Nothing I do is magic, but I've been told this one comes close. We're going to replace all financial incentives with a week off with pay. Now I got it. I can, from Montana, I can hear the steam coming out of your ears and the question marks around your head. Well, do you have any idea what that costs? Listen, in the very first beginning, in the first hour last week, I asked you to write down what is the cost annually of having a job open or unfilled or having the wrong person in it. And many of those numbers were 70,000, 130,000, 250,000, even one. So how does that compare with giving somebody a week off with pay? That's maybe $1,000 or $1,500. But more importantly, we're going to give them immediate gratification because I want you to have skin in the game. I want you to think about, as an employer, why we say they have to wait 90 days to see if that person works out. Because as an employer, it takes us off the hook. They don't work out, it doesn't cost us anything. But we're doing the interviewing. We're the one making the hiring decision. And when you don't have any skin in the game because you have a waiting period, you will end up hiring or considering hiring people that you should never hire simply because there's no real cost to you. So the program that I have promoted across the country for the last 2 years that has ended up being wildly successful is we create a referral culture by rewarding people who make a successful referral with a full week's paid vacation, and it's immediately available to them. Now, they don't get to take it immediately. They are immediately granted to them. Just a second, I'm got to put my glasses on. Immediate gratification is a concept we practice in Boy Scouts. Give them the patch as soon as it's earned. Don't wait for the long ceremony. Steve, I think you are absolutely 100% right. You're asking them to take an emotional risk. And so what we want to do is we want to create an emotional event for them. Somebody recruits somebody in. I want you to pull everybody in the department in and hand them a golden ticket. Yup, a Willy Wonka golden ticket for a week off with pay in front of everybody. Now, again, they get it right away, but you still get to tell them when they can schedule. You still have to run your business. But here's where the magic comes from. Not only are we going to do that, sorry, a little clicker fatigue, I'm afraid. There we go. When the first couple of people win this vacation, we're going to offer them $300 in addition, travel cash, if they will share with us 3 pictures from their vacation that they earned. Once we get at least 6 and maybe 9 or 12 pictures from people, we're going to create a full color physical flyer, not an email, a full color physical flyer. We're going to explain the week off with pay for a referral very in detail in this flyer. And we're going to ring those words. We're going to ring the flyer in the pictures of people who are enjoying that vacation. And then we're going to mail it out to every employee's home, but we're going to address it to the family of the employee. Why are we doing that? Well, number one, your employees probably already know that there's a referral program, and they have not chosen to do it. But secondly, remember the emotional risk that I told you you're asking them to take? You do not, as an employer, have enough emotional leverage over your employee to overcome their fear. But their family does. Because once they open this letter, and very likely it's not going to be the employee who opens the letter, it's going to be the spouse, significant other, or the children, and you'll see that there's an emotional anchor attached. That this benefit for doing what we want them to do has an immediate and direct positive impact on the lives of their family. We're not doing it in secret, like we're going to tell our employees we're sending them home, and there's no behind the back or anything here. But emotional anchors are about offering benefits that directly and immediately positively affect the spouse, significant other, and children in the organization. Will a week vacation do that? The experience we've had is very often when those letters go out, some of the spouses take the other spouse by the ear, set them down at the table and say, okay, how long has this been available? Because we haven't seen my mother in the last 3 years because you go deer hunting, or, whatever the thing is. Trying to be funny there. Hope I didn't offend anyone. But that spouse who has a mental Rolodex, a network of people that he or she knows all themselves, incentivizes encourages and helps the employee to simply make a referral of somebody that they already know and trust to a company that they believe in and love. Is it reasonable to think that people who love your company aren't bringing people in because they just hate the idea? No, too much risk, not enough reward. And so the last thing that we do is when we do this promotion is we encourage people to post pictures from their vacation on a board, on a recruitment board, and say, these are the pictures from the vacation I earned from bringing somebody great into the organization. And again, remember, we're just asking people to refer people they already know and trust, that they believe are good people, into an organization that they love. It's not reasonable to think that they're not doing it because there's not enough money in it. I want you to consider that every decision like this that has to do with friends or family is an emotional decision. And once again, you don't have enough emotional leverage in order to get somebody to refer somebody and put that relationship at risk. But their family does. And more importantly, that wife or husband, spouse, significant other, again, has a set of people that they know that your employee doesn't know. They have a network all of their own of people that they could suggest as a referral. And why does this work, by the way? Why does it work for you? Because it works for you. They only refer good people because they're putting their personal and professional reputation on the line to refer somebody in. They're only going to refer people in that they really think are going to be a good fit. And more importantly, what you probably want to do if you can, if they're referring a good friend, is hire them and put them on the same team as the person that hired them. Not only do we have two friends working together that have known each other and know how to communicate all this time, but more importantly, if either one of them starts getting out of line, I mean, I'm saying this as a euphemism here, but the one that's got referred them in, if the referral is not pulling their weight, they'll slap them upside the head and go, come on, you're making me look bad here. And again, that friend that referred them in has enough emotional influence over that person that they brought into the organization to get them to straighten up and fly right. More importantly, by the way, because they're only referring good people, that will very likely not happen for you at all. You'll only have good people coming into your organization. So before I move on to the next slide, I want to check in for questions. We have about 6 minutes left and one concept, but any questions about that idea as a whole? And once again, it's well laid out in the book. Can I get a wave or a thumbs up or something, or to me? Yeah, thank you. I love doing this in person, by the way. Much harder to do it visually because I want to make sure that you get the concepts. Oh, I got a smiley face. I think we're good to go. All right. So let's talk about kind of the last idea for the day. Another clicker issue. And initially, my guess is you're going to come out of your chair. This goes against everything that you've probably been taught as a business owner or manager. But in my world, in the way I think, my process-oriented way, there is nothing more valuable to an employee than paid time off. And for salaried employees only, again, salaried employees only, what is the cost of giving a salaried employee a week off with pay? Zero. Your salaried employees have a fixed salary, and when they go on vacation, you don't bring somebody in from the outside to do their job. Their team pulls together, or they do the work before they leave, or they do the work before they come back. Some of our employees are actually working when they're on vacation, but they have a fixed salary. They have fixed benefits. What is the cost of offering one more week of vacation to your salaried employees than everybody else in your industry? I have a sign out in Austin that says, how can we supply you with 3 weeks vacation in your first year? It's a tagline, isn't it? Because people call us and say, well, how can you provide us with 3 weeks vacation? And because they're salaried employees and it's a fixed cost, and the cost is actually zero, we can do that. And here's the way to make it work. we identify KPIs, right? For that department that we're offering this to, KPIs, key performance indicators, and we chart key performance indicators, and we put acceptable levels for each one of them, and we chart them every week. And we tell people this additional week of vacation will stay in force until and unless these KPIs fall below a certain level for 2 weeks in a row, or I'm sorry, 2 months in a row. If they fall below this level for 2 months, then people are going to lose that week of vacation, because we granted it, right? They didn't earn it. We just kind of gave it to them. How much managing do you think you're going to have to do in that department to make sure they hit those KPIs? How much peer pressure do you think there will be? How much cooperation? How much let me help you with that do you think will happen to make sure that everybody in that department doesn't lose their extra week of vacation? If it's true that vacation is a zero cost benefit for your salaried employees, then I also want to let you know that it will create permanence and stop people leaving your organization. SHRM did a survey in 2016. They found out the #1 benefit that an employer supplies that makes the employee feel worthwhile and appreciated is vacation. And what I know for sure from my job seekers, and I'm going to leave you with this idea, is people will only leave for more money if everything else is the same or better. And if you have 1 week of vacation more than every one of your competitors, I mean, imagine going home and saying, to your spouse or significant other, hey, I'm gonna take a new job. They're going to pay me $7,000 more a year to do roughly the same thing. The only trouble is I have to go from 3 weeks vacation back down to 1. You tell me what that next conversation is going to be like. Like, heck, you will. Like, you gotta be kidding me. We don't see you enough the way it is. The kids, and I love seeing you, that vacation is valuable. Like, no. Again, creating emotional anchors, benefits that reach immediately, directly, and positively into the household to affect the spouse, significant other, children, not only gets people to create referrals for you, but also can be the buffer against people leaving your organization in times of stress. Many of my job seekers said that they were going to leave a long time before they actually did, but it was their spouse or significant other, based on the good experiences they had with the organization, that held them back. So that's where I'm going to leave off for today. Any questions? Oh, happy to open up with questions. And Nathan, I'm going to ask you to monitor them if and as they come in.
Also, I'll watch the chat, but if you also want to just unmute and ask a question, feel free to do that as well.
I'll go first if I'm not stepping in front of everybody, but that concept of instant gratification and vacation, I agree with it. It makes sense to me. How do I apply that to our pool of drivers that we need to kind of wring every single hour we can out of between September and March?
Yeah, so you can have a blackout period for when people, again, you get to decide when they take it. They get it immediately. They earn it immediately, right? But you get to decide when they use it. And you still got to run your business. The other thing is, if you have kind of critical needs, you can also provide a menu of people. You can have a week off vacation. We'll create an all expense 3-day weekend paid for you and your family at a really nice resort. But you want to stay away from money, because, think about it. Money hasn't motivated people to do this so far. Why would we think that it's going to start doing it all of a sudden? Does that help, Errol?
It does. and I don't want to get too deep into our stuff when there's a lot of other people on the line, but our drivers, some of them earn vacation with us. They only work those 6 months.
Sure.
So some of them just barely earn that vacation threshold for us. And they typically just, get paid out on that vacation. They're not taking a vacation during their employment with us at all. So I get the concept. I think we need to kind of backfill on how to make it work for us, because our referral program hasn't had the success we've wanted it to have.
Right.
So
So Errol, to make sure that we're not taking too much time on one topic, please get my contact information from Nathan. I would love to have a conversation with you offline about this, because again, this was my life for the better part of 10 years.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, I'll get that to you, Errol. Nothing on the chat yet. If anybody else wants to unmute and ask a question, feel free.
Well, if there are no questions, what I'm going to just, there's somebody, Nathan in the chat room. Would you look at that?
Yep, so it just says where we'll be able to find the recording. So I put the link in there. You also should get an email with the link coming out later. As soon as it processes the video and then we get it to our website person, they usually should have it up by Wednesday afternoon. And the link to the first recording is already up. So.
Yeah, and again, this is kind of, even though it's 3 hours, it's just a teaser. When things normalize, whatever normal is, I hope we have a conversation about coming out there in person, doing kind of a really, nuts and bolts to teach you how to do it. So what I was going to say, and I see that there's a question in the chat room, but I don't want you to take 5 ideas and run with them. I want you to take one idea from the book, right? Don't run back to your company and say, we need to do this and this and this and this, because remember, you're stepping on people's toes. The way it is now is that way because somebody wanted it that way, or 10 years ago it worked. Take one idea you have really embraced that really makes sense to you, and just try to bring that one concept into your organization, and then you can win people on your side that there is actually a different way to do a lot of these things.
So Mark has a question. He says, how do you feel about the perspective today that few people want to work?
It's fundamentally false. I don't know. Well, hang on a second. No, there is some truth to it, because for the last 11 years, the labor participation rate, and you don't have to trust me here, you can just go to the government statistics, from 1945 to 2008, right before the Great Recession, 68% of all able-bodied people decided or actively worked outside the home more than part-time. Since the Great Recession in 2009, that rate has dropped by 10%, and it has stayed that way, right? So there is 10% less. So not only are there are less people because of the demographics, but there are 10% of people choosing not to work. But remember, you don't need everybody in America to come to you. You need 7 great people out of the 400,000 within 30 miles of where you are, or whatever the number is, 100,000. You need 7. So please don't get caught up in the fear and mongering of whatever you're looking at, right? You don't need the whole world to love your printing company or whatever that is. You need 7, and the way we do that is identify which 7 people fit the persona of somebody that our job is a perfect fit for their life and solves their problems.
So I'm not seeing anything else. If anybody does have a last question, we've got about a minute left. Just want to say the link that I put in there it has last week's up already. Next week will come on that same page. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me. If there's something you think of afterwards, I'm happy to pass it on to Chris, and he can probably address it in next week's session. Or if it's specific to your industry, I'm sure he'd be happy to kind of connect with you if he has that chance. So
happy to do that.
So, well, great. Thanks, Chris. We'll be back next week at 11 on Tuesday. So to do this final, really appreciate your wisdom today and your thoughts. And we'll look forward to talking to you again in a week.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. I know that you had 100 different choices for what to do with this hour of your day. I'm grateful that you gave us the trust in order to do it with us. And again, I'm an open book, right? I'm in the legacy part of my life. Any information I don't give away goes to the grave with me. Hopefully not soon, but like, you know, you will find me an open ear and ready to have a conversation. So if you want to talk with me, please just contact Nathan directly, and happy to have a phone conversation with you. Guys, thank you very much. And I'll see you next week.